The doctor's eyeball, when his head exploded, came flying out, and I think it hit the captain.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to Every Edition, your tabletop RPG talk show. I'm Jesse.
I'm John.
And today we are going to be looking at the Alien starter set Chariot of the Gods mini adventure. It's like a cinematic adventure in a very heavily spoilery way.
Super spoilery.
We're going to talk about everything. We're going to talk about our thoughts about it, break it down, the story itself from a GM's perspective and a player's perspective.
Yep.
We do have a spoiler-free review of this starter set in its entirety, so you can go check out that if you want to steer clear of spoilers.
Yeah, plenty of coverage of the Alien RPG here on Every Edition, but as Jesse said, this is our experience having played the game. Jesse was the GM, I was one of the players, and we're gonna totally break down all three acts of our experience with Chariot of the Gods.
Super fun.
And
oh my gosh.
Without giving too much away, it was great. So we can just start there. It was fantastic. Jesse, it was your first experience, right? Running Alien RPG?
I have not run games that aren't Dungeons and Dragons very much.
Wow.
I've run a little bit of Starfinder for like one person, and that was weird. I've done some Pathfinder, that was also weird. But this is really my first like official non D&D sort of high fantasy stuff. And it was super fun. It was interesting to prep for, interesting to think about, and really cool to try to like, you know, set the mood, because I like to be very wordy and very flowery when I'm trying to set mood for things. And this gave a different, you know, you can talk about the cold hard, you know, steel of a spaceship a little bit differently than you can like the gross and dank dungeon that you're sort of used to.
Sure.
It's a different headspace as a GM, but it was really fun. Great.
Yeah, it was. I couldn't tell that was, you know, the first time that you'd run something, you know, other than Dungeons and Dragons. But what do you think? How did this, as a first time running a different game system, how does this compare to Dungeons and Dragons?
So I think this was probably the best system that I could have used as a first non-D&D system.
Okay.
You know, I'm used to the 7 dice that D&D has. I'm used to, you know, a D20 with advantage or disadvantage or whatnot.
Yep.
Free League uses their year 0 engine that has only D6s, and they give you, in the starter set, they give you 2 different types of D6s, and that's it. It's much more about atmosphere and role playing, what the different people do, their personal agendas, and what the characters want to do. It compared to D&D, it's not as math heavy or I don't know. I guess you are still rolling dice,
sure,
but in a different kind of way. And you sort of roll them like Yahtzee. You roll like 10 dice at the same time, which also feels really good.
Yeah. You're not adding the dice together. They're sort of like you're looking for sixes, right? You're looking for success. And so that makes it much more of it's an image rather than a number, right? Like you're just, you know, the 6 could basically be anything. You're just looking for that particular symbol on the die to pop up, and that
many times when I'm like deep in a high fantasy role play setting, and even like in the middle of combat or whatnot, and I'm trying to like monologue about, you know, whatever place you are, whatever setting you're at, trying to set the mood. A dice roll can really sort of break the immersion, and can really slow things down, because you got to look at your character sheet, you got to look at see what your proficiency is, you got to look to see what weapon you've got. And, you know, most players, even if they've been playing for years and years and years, even the same character, they still have to look at their character sheet because they haven't memorized everything or whatnot. So this dice rolling in this game felt it didn't break anything. It was just sort of part of the game. You like pick up 10 dice, you roll them. Hey, There's a 6. Yep. Oh, there's a face hugger. Like, oh God, what happens now?
Right.
And then everybody panics and laughs, and it's really fun.
Yeah. Well, and from a player perspective, rules light. I mean, it couldn't have been simpler to sort of understand and jump right into play. Yeah. Right. Basically, as soon as you have your first roll, your first skill check, that's it. Like, you understand the game. It's not. There's nothing else really to it. It's one pretty simple game mechanic that really runs the whole adventure.
You succeed or you fail, and if you fail, you can roll the dice again, but you get a little bit more stressed out.
Yep.
And that's sort of the main, builder in this game. Harkening back to the Alien movies, the appeal of them is that they're very suspenseful,
right,
very spooky, very scary, very interesting to look at. And, in this game, we don't really have much to look at.
Yeah.
So the dice are really what pushes forward that stress build.
Yeah.
As well as any atmospheric elements you add to it, or the GM describing things.
Yep.
And it's really cool when somebody finally rolls a face hugger, when they've been building stress, and someone finally does the panic roll, and they're like, oh no, what does that mean?
Right.
Before anybody knows. It was really, really cool.
Yeah. All right. So how did you, let's talk about preparation for the game. How did you prepare to run Chariot of the Gods?
So, as I can't really speak for like a new DM for D&D, but I imagine if you were prepping for the D&D starter set, it would be pretty easy to pick up and go, because all the character sheets are sort of laid out pretty well. It tells you kind of like when to ask them to roll. It's a little bit hand-holdy. This game is not that.
Okay.
It's actually pretty intensive when it comes to prepping for this, I think. If you don't want to be, and even I still had to flip through the rules a bunch of times. It kind of stinks having everything in one book. I think maybe it would have been a little bit easier to have it on a PDF, open multiple times, so I could have multiple things at the ready.
Okay.
But prepping for it, the rules book that comes with this starter set is over 100 pages. So it's 120 pages or something like that. It's basically the core rule book without the character creation, without a couple other things, and some of the systems boiled down a little bit. So it has a lot of the game already ready to go. So to prep for this, to make sure I had answers when questions came up, I was sort of looking through the adventure as I was reading to see, okay, well, I would need this rule when this comes up, so I'll make sure I know this. And then I just read through everything. There's some stuff about ranged combat that we never had to deal with.
Yep.
That I didn't think would come up, so I didn't really dive too much into that. I spent more time elsewhere. But it is a lot of prep. If you want to, keep things going smoothly and keep going, I'm a DM for hire, so I want the client's time to not be wasted. So I'm going to put as much effort into it as I can on the back end to make it seamlessly and effortlessly when we're actually playing.
Well, and I would imagine some of the time spent was the learning curve because it was a new game.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right. So now, if you got another cinematic Alien adventure, you've got some stuff under your belt. You've got some things that you know how to do, and so it would be that much easier to kind of prepare a second adventure.
Definitely. I don't think that this gives you any of the tools to create your own in any capacity, but I think it does lead itself to helping you with the other adventures, like the new Heart of Darkness cinematic thing that just got up for pre-orders the other week. Any of the cinematic or even the campaign book, I imagine, will be much easier to prep now that I've got sort of the system down and what Free League is trying to push.
Okay. So let's jump into looking at each of the 3 acts. So we ended up having 3 gaming sessions, and it ended up being 1 session for each act. And so we're gonna break it down a little bit as to what happened in each of those acts and what was happening behind the scenes, preparing each of those acts, and then what it was like to be a player playing those acts. So what was Act 1 Jesse, what was it all about?
So for us specifically, it was for mood, introducing the idea of the systems of the game, so stress and panic and rolling and things like that, and getting everyone, myself included, used to the game, because everybody at the table was used to Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep.
So we had to sort of switch gears. We had some atmospheric stuff happening. We had like moody lighting and like the sounds of a droning ship. There's like alien Spotify playlists that you can look for. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I actually highly recommend if you have Spotify, check out the Alien RPG playlist that's on there. It really is just sounds of a ship with the occasional like kind of thing going on, and it's it's you know, it's like a soundscape. It's not it's not really songs, but it was terrific, and it's like 3 or 4 hours long, so it's plenty long for a game session. Hit play and let it go, and it really just it elevated the whole experience.
I think there was one time where something happened, like it stopped or disconnected or whatever, and everybody like took a quick second, like, wait, this is weird.
Yeah,
we need to put that back on.
My son was playing Spotify back at back home, and it knocked out the connection for a second. Yeah, but it did. It was jarring. Even though it's just like a low hum of a ship.
You notice when it's gone.
You notice when it's gone. Yeah, because otherwise you're in it.
And that's sort of, you know, if you imagine yourself in like this sort of alien situation where you're out light years away from Earth or whatever on a ship, you're going to be used to those kind of sounds, so you're going to want those kind of sounds to be happening to sort of get your characters into the role play mind.
Yep.
Especially if they're coming from D&D, which tends to be a little bit more of like a hack and slash type of thing. This game doesn't feel very hack and slashy, because if you do, you'll die.
Yeah, combat's deadly. So we'll get there.
So we'll get there. So it's also everybody gets their own personal agenda.
Right.
So spending a little bit of time with everybody, knowing what their personal agenda is, how they're going to deal with that, and there's one personal agenda for each act, and it's sort of they change and mold as the story sort of progresses. We also did some, like, one of the characters is like the captain of the ship, and I did some like, hey, let's go talk aside, so I can give you some info that only the captain gets to know. Yeah. So then you can tell everybody at your own discretion. There's room there in the first act, because no combat has happened yet, for more role play, exploration. You try to dock the original ship onto this derelict ship that you find. That's really your sort of first introduction to the rolling system. Yeah.
It felt like, from a player's perspective, the whole point of Act 1 of that first gaming session that we had was just to kind of establish our characters and our relationships to each other. We had rivals. Yeah. There was a hierarchy with a captain and a pilot, and then the sort of like crew workers and stuff like that. And so it was figuring out who's who and what's what and how these things work. And I thought you did a good job bringing the captain out as sort of an important person and somebody that everybody really should be kind of turning to, and our person that was playing the captain did a great job.
Yeah, I think so.
We ended up having, though, the game is set for 5 players.
Yes, I think 5 players,
and we had more than that. So how did you handle that? What did you do?
So we took one of the characters that I thought was, I don't know, not least important, but not most important. Like, there can't be 2 captains.
Right.
We took one character and we just used a second character sheet of that person, and made them an android.
There you go.
So the book does say that you can have one of the people be an android. That is like a thing for conflict. Typically, an android in the alien setting is not looked at kindly.
Right.
So if you want conflict, if you want to do some of the options in all of the acts, you can have one person be an android, and they have like a secret android personal agenda.
Right.
So we just said, hey, the extra person, be the android.
Yeah. And I was the android. It was great. So one of the things that's cool about playing an android in the Alien RPG is you function as a regular character, including getting stress dice, until you reveal that you're an android. And then all of a sudden, you no longer take on stress. You can't push your rolls, which means you can't re-roll. So that's the bad side. Like, you only get one shot at something, one chance, but you're like super strong.
Yeah, you get a lot of strength. You can like rebuild.
Your HP goes in the toilet though too. So that's the other thing too. Like, you only have
like
you have 2 hit points, but you're super strong, and you don't have to worry about stress, which is both good and bad. So it was great. At the end of the first act, my character revealed that they were an android because it seemed like there was going to be a conflict with potentially another android coming soon, and I wanted to tell them that, you know, I was on their side, and give them information about what was potentially a bad android.
So yeah, your group, you found the crew that was on the derelict ship in cryosleep for like 75 years. You found them, helped them, brought them back to your ship, and we had heard at like a couple of pings on the radar that there was some like somebody or something moving around that ship.
Yep.
And we sort of just assumed that it was their android because they had one too, that has been not tended to in 75 years. And an alien, when an older model of androids doesn't get any sort of maintenance, they go crazy and they like start to kill people and things like that. So
that was I read just the one page on androids in the quick start rules, and it says 2 things: that older models of androids potentially don't have the fail-safe to stop them from hurting humans, and that the longer an android goes without maintenance, the crazier it gets, right? And so those 2 things, well, this was going to be a 75-year-old android that hadn't been worked on for 75 years. There was like 2 reasons to think it was going to be crazy.
Yeah.
So I revealed myself to tell everybody that information that I knew, which wasn't much, but it was enough to kind of prepare everybody to be like, hey, I think we know what the next conflict is going to be. We need to prepare ourselves.
And that builds trust in them, in you.
Right.
Because as players, they're coming from watching the movies, and they have some player bias of like, androids are bad.
Yep.
So you give them a little bit of trust.
Yep.
As well.
All right, so let's move on to Act 2. The characters have established their relationships in Act 1. They've met the other crew. We concluded with bringing the crew back to the original, to our ship, to the player character's ship. And we kicked off Act 2. And Jesse, what's the thesis? What's the reason behind Act 2? What's the goal here?
Act 2 is establishing a forward goal of the party, what to do with the ship, and how to get it back or whatnot. You have a couple different new personal agendas, but mainly it's to introduce you to combat.
Okay.
It's like sort of explicitly clear in the adventure, this is the first time combat comes up. You can have combat come up in the previous act, but that's like, GM discretion. We had brought the doctor or the medical expert of the derelict ship's crew that we saved back onto their ship to go look around for some samples of this weird goo that they had found. Very, very much like the Alien movies.
Sure.
And we had no idea what this weird goo was, so we wanted to go talk to the expert. And all the while he's having like hot flashes and headaches and itchy skin and sickness stuff that you don't really want to be near. So a couple people like kept their suits on.
Right.
So then we took him to the science lab to really see what was going on. He said, yeah, there's some kind of infection or whatever. Here's some inoculations that'll save you from the infection of being in this ship. And that's when the first combat happens. Right after, basically, he inoculates you. His head explodes, and there was some pretty graphic descriptions going on. And a blood burster like sort of rips out of his body. And there was like a baby alien kind of. It wasn't like a neomorph or a xenomorph or anything, but it was like a baby alien that we took, I think, a couple shots at, but didn't kill it, or maybe we did kill it. I can't remember exactly. But you can kill it there, or if you don't, it scurries away and like grows.
Okay.
So that's really where the first combat is, and we sort of kicked off the second act with that sort of sudden stressful moment. And the entire time, you know, through Act 1 and Act 2, we had just been building stress so that when the first combat happened, everybody had stress. They were already stressed because, you know, they haven't been really sleeping. They just found like a crazy ship. They've seen some dead bodies or whatever. They're stressed, and now they're in combat that's even more stressful. So it just heightened the adventure.
Yeah, you had a great descriptor, and I don't know if it was in the book or if it was you ad-libbing, but the doctor's eyeball, when his head exploded, came flying out, and I think it hit the captain.
Yeah. So some kind of thing to make everybody make their stress go up.
Sure.
And that sure as heck would make my stress go up.
Now, right before the doctor's head blew up and we had our first combat, though, the doctor offered all of us a chance to be inoculated against whatever virus or whatever alien stuff was going on. And everybody took, he had 3 inoculations, and 3 of the crew took the shot, including the captain and 2 others. And then after the inoculations were delivered, that's when the doctor's head blew up.
He served his purpose.
But then it was also clear, like, taking those inoculations was probably a mistake.
Yeah.
Because he was clearly showing symptoms of something. And shortly after that combat was when people started to have itchy skin and hot flashes and stuff like that.
So it was kind of clear that the cryo sleep slowed things down with the progression of the infection, but you guys aren't in cryo sleep. You're active, you're moving around,
right? You're
heightened stress, you've got your blood pumping, so the infection's going to work a lot quicker on you. Also in the book, it says that everybody can get inoculated. Like, there are enough for all of the players.
Okay.
But I chose, for whatever reason, to only have a couple. I think I just rolled a die and said, hey, these are how many there are. Who wants them?
It seemed, so if there would have been enough for everybody, that would have felt sketchier. Like, like more questionable. But the fact that there were only 3, then the conversation was about, well, who's going to get it, right? Which then sort of presupposes, well, we're going to use them.
Sure.
Right? So I think that was a smart change too.
I think it creates more tension and more areas for heightened gameplay if you have a limited quantity of anything.
Yep.
Like a limited amount of water or air or whatever this, know.
No, that seemed like a really smart change, because it was an opportunity to role play.
Yeah.
Who's going to get it? And there was a little bit of infighting, a little bit of like pulling rank. That's why the captain got one, right?
Yeah.
It made you want to use them, in a way that.
And there's definitely some, you can play up the rivalries. Like you said, you can pull rank. There's not too many opportunities for dives into role playing, but in the book they specifically say that combat can occur between 2 people. Okay. And we don't want to cross that. At least I don't really want to cross that line, but I definitely want to get up to that line.
Yeah.
And see where that pushes the players.
So how did Act 2 conclude? What was
So the big crux of Act 2 is the mother AI of the new ship and the old ship, I guess, having some sort of communication, knowing that the old ship has been found and has xenomorph goo. Weyland-Yutani wants that back on Earth so they can experiment with it, because they want to be, as all of the alien movies, they want to be the people who discovered new life.
Sure.
They want to. There's money in that. Whatever.
Well, they want to weaponize it.
They want to weaponize it.
Yeah.
There's useful things that they need in that ship, and your first directive is to get that ship and anything you find as a Weyland-Yutani employee that is old property of theirs back to them. But the mother AI, for whatever reason, on your original ship says, sorry, you've got 10 minutes. I'm going to explode. So It's sort of like a fail-safe, I guess.
He wanted to force us onto the ship with the xenomorph stuff, so that was our only way to.
Yeah. They really, really want that stuff back.
Yeah.
So you're not going to go onto the ship that's going to explode,
right,
and stay there because you're going to die,
right.
So the characters decided, and there was still that group of the new NPCs on that ship that they had brought in. They were just like locked in the cafeteria,
right?
Just like eating, trying to wake up after 75 years or whatever.
Yep.
They decided to not tell them anything was happening. So there's a couple different things you could do. You could either have the ship go on autopilot, which needs a piloting roll to get far enough away from the derelict ship to like when it explodes, it doesn't hit the ship and do any damage to your ship.
Okay.
Or you can have somebody drive the ship and sacrifice themselves in the process of getting that ship far enough away. We took a different option because there is a sort of hidden third option of driving the ship far enough away and getting into a smaller shuttle ship that's only for like short range distances, and driving that and docking that back on the derelict ship.
Right.
And that's what we did.
Yep. So my character, the android, who was loyal to the party, said, "I'll do it because if I die, and I'm not, no life is really lost." Right. So I got on the original ship, drove it away, jumped on the shuttle. I made all my rolls, which I didn't fully realize at the time. Like, if I would have failed any one of those rolls, again, because I was an android, that would have been it.
Yep. So very dangerous.
So very dangerous. But I made all the rolls I needed to make and got back onto the derelict ship with the shuttle, and our old ship exploded. And that was basically the end of Act 2.
Yeah,
right?
That was the end of Act 2. We murdered like 4 people.
Yep. Yep. All the crew of the derelict ship was dead on our ship. All right.
Yikes.
So let's talk then about our third gaming session, Act 3. We get together for one more time to wrap this up. And so again, what's going on behind the scenes? What's the point of Act 3?
So as with all of the acts, there are different sort of paragraphs and key things that can happen during an act. You can choose whether or not you want to show people a dead body in the first act, but there are points that need to happen. The pirates and there's space pirates.
Of course.
Everything's valuable. You are hauling goods. There's a big explosion, whatever. This group of pirates were trailing you along your initial sort of voyage, probably going to steal whatever valuables you had in your original ship. Now seeing that there's a second ship that's probably more valuable, they've decided to board and see what's up, try to take over, try to either kill whoever's there or coerce them into splitting some money and blackmailing them, I guess.
Sure.
So between the pirates and trying to get this derelict ship working and getting home somehow is the main sort of goal of Act 3.
Cool. Yeah, it was the whole adventure is structured to sort of ramp up.
Yeah.
So if the first act, you're establishing character, learning the rules, and figuring out your relationships and stuff. The second act, you have your first combat. And then the third act, there's a lot of combat. And you realize how deadly it is.
Yes.
So that first combat in Act 2 with the head explodes and there's the baby xenomorph kind of thing, that was not particularly deadly as it turns out, but as soon as you meet like the mama, or as soon as you meet the full-fledged neomorph, man, they're tough.
They are tough. They have a lot of HP. They're resistant. They have pretty high armor.
Yeah.
And they do a lot of damage, and they do like stacking damage.
Yep.
Where like if they hit you once, they will hit you again for more damage. And you're humans. You have 1 and 2 HP.
Right. Yeah. My android got ripped apart.
Yeah.
That was and it was just that was it. Like it didn't. So again, maybe something a little bit different from if you're used to Dungeons and Dragons. Like combat's really to be avoided or done at a distance.
Yes.
Like you really don't want to engage because my character got ripped apart.
So I already had ideas in mind for how I wanted combat to go.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted you to see a full-fledged neomorph.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, unfortunately, there's no stats or no appearances of like the xenomorph in this, but they are in the like actual rule book.
Okay.
So it just happens that this one doesn't have any xenomorphs, which I tried to find on the fly some xenomorph stats, but I couldn't. So I wanted a full-fledged neomorph, but I also wanted a couple of the people who were infected to turn into a bubblehead, which is like the final evolution of the infection, to sort of turn on the party and have them attack the party. So it was a really cool combat scenario where a couple people, we also had the pirates to deal with as well.
Right.
There's a lot of things going on at once. It was very chaotic, very dangerous. But a couple of people, I switched them from being a player character to being a bad guy and being an enemy. So I gave them the enemy's stats, and they were attacking the party, and that was cool. As their character.
Yep. Well, and then too, you were able to use the space pirates as replacement characters when those either, converted player characters were taken down, or in the case of my character, when my character was destroyed, then everybody was still able to keep playing. It was like, here's one of the space pirates.
Yeah, and we had enough of them where there wasn't really a time until like the end of the game where there was only one or two people fighting. Like I didn't want to be the person who was controlling all of the bad guys, and just having a couple people sitting on the sidelines on their phone or whatever because their character died. Like I was like, no, here, you're the pirate. Now you're this person with these different agendas. Like, let's go. We're in the middle of combat. Same initiative. Let's go.
So our game ended with one original crew member actually successfully taking the ship with the alien material, successfully taking it back to Earth and getting into a cryo chamber. My android character was on that ship and would have been repaired and would have memory of most of everything that was going on. And then the pirates and a couple crew members made it off on the pirate ship. Yeah. And so the party was split, but there were survivors.
There were survivors.
And it was really was satisfying and a lot of fun. I could tell the person that got the alien material back was really happy. Like, you don't really win in a role-playing game, but they kind of won. You know what I mean? Like, and that you could see it. Like, it was cool. So that was fun. But how about let's final thoughts, Jesse? What's what are you thinking?
So this, it's sort of a joke, like online. If you are introduced to a game that's not Dungeons and Dragons and you like it, you'll start to see that there's more to life than Dungeons and Dragons. And I've played D&D solid every couple weeks for like the past 7 years. Never really having time to branch into other things. This, sure enough, is making me want to play not only more Alien, but other games as well. Other games by Free League, other games that we've talked about on the channel. I really want to try more new things because I just realize how... Like, D&D's really fun. Yeah. I have a lot of established things with D&D. I have my own world. I have my groups, a couple of books going on. But I really just want to try new things and see what experiences I can gain from those other things and bring them back to the games that I play. Yep. But I'm really excited to go forward with Alien in the other adventures, in the new box set that's coming out. I think this is also going to be part of my arsenal that I offer for a DM for hire. Yep. I've actually got another group set up to play this game. They've only ever played D&D for like the past 30 years. They've not really played anything else. So this is the first type of game like this that they're going to be playing, and they've agreed to let me run them through it, and it's going to be awesome. I can't wait.
So we're spreading the virus. Oh, yeah. That's good. That's good.
No inoculations.
That's right. So, well, that's great.
I'm really excited about delving a little bit deeper into Alien as well. There's a lot of things in the game that we didn't really get to. Like I had mentioned some ranged combat. There's some more things that can happen with panic rolls that really set in the longer you play.
Yeah.
So I think more than a couple sessions would be, the next thing that I would want to try.
That's great. Well, and as a player, I mean, I would definitely play this again. This isn't a game to me that would replace Dungeons and Dragons, right? But it's certainly a game that I would want to play at least once a year, and could definitely see it, being like the Halloween game or somebody's birthday game, or some kind of special event, or you're gonna do something other than fantasy role playing. This is a great sci-fi alternative, and it's really fun. I definitely want to play it again. And like you, it's because Free League all uses the same rules, the same kind of dice, that Year Zero engine. It makes me curious about a lot of their other systems, and I'm hoping we're going to end up playing Tales from the Loop as the next exploration of this particular system, because it's supposed to be even rules lighter than Alien, because it doesn't have the stress dice. And so that's going to be probably coming up at some point in the future. We'll play that, and then if we do, we'll bring it to the channel. So
I will say that this, from a GM's perspective, I'm not quite sure how it would be for a player. It might be a little weird, but this game has, at least the Chariot of the Gods in particular, has a lot of replayability, because you don't need to do everything in an act.
Okay.
If you only have time for one session, you don't have 3 or 2 sessions worth of time, you can really condense it and really speed things up and not do some of the sort of ancillary things like inoculating people or whatever. You can pick and choose what you really want to do. So it leaves things kind of open-ended. And like the pirates that we dealt with in Act 3 do have sort of interactions with the NPCs that are on the derelict ship, but they were dead. So we didn't get to do any of that stuff. So like there are options for that. And they have like their own agendas and their own thoughts on the pirates and wanting to push the players in one direction or another. So there is replayability from a GM's perspective, and potentially from a player's perspective, as long as they don't metagame too much.
Thanks a lot, everybody. This has been a special edition of Every Edition, our game recap for Chariot of the Gods. Be sure to check out everyeditionrpg.com to find links to all of our socials, including links to Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Plus, you can always find our podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Send us a note. everyeditionrpg@gmail.com. If you played Chariot of the Gods and want to talk about it, shoot a note our way. Or if you have any questions about the game or about the channel or suggestions for us, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks a lot for listening, and we'll see you next time.